Hey YouTube, it's the morning after the night before, and one of the perks about living where I live is I live close to the nature. This nature right here is just down the road, around the corner from where I live, walking distance. So I get the advantage of being able to go out and about with the trees. I mean, over there there's a housing development going on, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but hey. So I thought I'd bring you with. Now, I finished my last post talking about the football that was England final that was happening, and obviously at the time that I did the post, it was before the match started. I had no idea how it would go, and unfortunately it didn't go England's way. But the thing that was most unfortunate was the way in which the match ended. So for those of you who don't know, England played Italy in the finals of the Euro 2020, went into extra time, 1-0, and then went to penalties to decide the winner. And when it came down to the penalty takers for England, 3 young black boys along with 2 white boys had the job of taking penalties. Now, Nyla and I had spoken about the devastation and the abuse that the penalty takers of years gone by had been subjected to if they missed penalties. Gareth Southgate being one of them, the England manager. And I was heartbroken at the time when the 3 people that missed the penalties were the 3 black boys, because I absolutely knew the repercussions that would have for them. They wouldn't have missed the penalties because it was bad luck. Their colour would have come into it. So I had a conversation with Nyla briefly about that, and she was aware of it too, the implications of their colour on their penalty taking. So today has been, it's been a really interesting morning so far. I think I'll stop here for a moment. It's a bit tricky holding this because so many things come into the mix around this issue. The first thing is people who are shocked that these black boys are being racially abused. And to that I'd say check your privilege, hun, because that's the definition of privilege, not being aware of how a certain demarcation between you and another person will constantly affect their experience. So the fact that you're shocked by it's not shocking to me, it's just sad. It's saddening. Because the fact that, growing up, there's just so many experiences. My head's a bit of a jumble because there's so many experiences I could talk about. Even most recently, when I went to my dad's funeral in April, I was racially profiled by a police officer for going 20 something miles in a 20-mile zone. Now, bearing in mind, there were 5 or 6 cars that passed in front of me that were going faster than me that were not pulled over, but I was. And he kind of spat at me and I was like, what's your racial, what would you say your ethnic origin is? And I was like, what's that got to do with anything? You're speeding in a 20-mile zone. And I was like, I'm new to this area, I had no idea. And actually my head's all over the place because I'm on my way to my dad's funeral. And he just was so contemptuous towards me. And I can tell you a million other examples of this growing up. And I even realised that I am subject to privilege because I am not racially fully black. as a mixed race person, the colour of my skin, the way I look, means my experience is different to other black people. So anyway, what's this got to do with, I wanted to say, actually so many good things have happened as a result of the fact that these boys have been abused, and we've got a long way to go. But the fact that these conversations can even be had where people are shocked, where people are angered by the fact that there are a minority of people who are behaving inappropriately, racially abusively towards these guys, that's a huge step forward. It's a huge step forward that people are speaking up and noticing about it and condemning their actions. That's a huge step forward. It's also important to keep these conversations going and to continue to express outrage, but not just at the time it's happening and changing your Facebook, like the thing around your picture it says I stand against racism, and that's great because it brings the conversation and a positive perspective to perhaps other people in your circle. But what else can you be doing? And one of the most fundamental things is having conversations with your kids about it. If you are someone who is not a white person, or you have children who are not white, these conversations will be happening in your household anyway, and that's something else that marks the privilege, because if you're white, these things probably don't even enter your head. You don't even understand the implications or care about them. And my mum spent a lot of time when I was growing up trying to prepare me because I was black. And I mention this because being a mixed race person is actually very different to having the experience of being black, and I don't know what that is because I am both races. I am both black and white. So I think there's sometimes an oversimplification of this, and I think because my mum grew up in America, she was very conscious. The race situation there was very much heated, and still is. We know about George Floyd last year. So in the light of the fact that the George Floyd murder happened and there was a wave of outrage last year, the fact that there is still a lack of understanding that this happens for people still in this country every single day, your kids need to be aware. They need to be aware of the language. They need to be aware of the things that are appropriate and not appropriate. We have a responsibility to educate our kids, to let them know that this behaviour isn't right, regardless of what colour you are. And like I say, people who are not white will already be doing this because they have no choice. But if you are out there and this hasn't crossed your mind, and this is something that you feel awkward about, think about how awkward it is for people who have had to experience discrimination, racism every single day. So yeah, that's my little rant about anti-racism. Get yourself educated, have the uncomfortable conversations with yourself, find out the uncomfortable information and sit with that. Sit with how uncomfortable it makes you feel, because it's only making you uncomfortable as an observer 2-3 times removed. And take responsibility. If you're serious, if it matters to you that people are treated astonishingly badly just because of the way they look, then do something about it and make your kids understand the importance of it, so it doesn't keep perpetuating, because inactivity, inaction, failing to take responsibility is why this continues to happen time and time again. Tee-hee, look at me, second day out and about. What is going on? Today is Tuesday and I am in a secret location. Well, it's not that secret, it's my car in a car park in a secret location, which is somewhere in Surrey. So basically, took the girls to an amusement park, Nyla and her pals, and I brought them because one of the drawbacks of living in the Shires is it's pretty impossible to get good transport links to places that are far away. So because I can work quite flexibly, I agreed to bring them down, drop them there, had absolutely no interest of going in. I don't think they would have wanted me to go anyway. And then I relocated myself to a nearby space to spend my day having an adventure. And I was gonna go and take this and do a little film by, I'm near the water, near the river, but it was just way too noisy, so I thought it's a no to that. So here we are in the car. But you know, one of the most beautiful things about this day is it's been an adventure because I'm somewhere I've never been before, and I am just having a look around. I located myself close to a library so I could go and do some work, get on the old Wi-Fi, do those kinds of practical bits. But aside from that, I've spent the day having a nose and a wander around on my tootsies in this new town, in this new place. And it just really reminded me of how cool kids are. You know, like, one of the great things about kids is they have a freedom, a sense of exploration, a sense of no expectation about what things should or shouldn't be in the day-to-day happenings of life. They are open to seeing what happens. So I was tapping into that childlike freedom, that childlike sense of possibility, to get myself around and about this town. And I found some really cool places that I didn't think, well, no, not that I didn't think, that I wouldn't have expected to have found if I had just closed off the thinking and not been open to the possibilities. And I think another thing that it reminded me of coming somewhere like this, we often associate the idea of like holiday or having a break as going somewhere with really beautiful aesthetics, really relaxing, very different to where we live, and forgetting that anywhere than where we live is different and it has infinite possibilities. Because of that, there's so many things that you can find if you just open your heart, open your eyes, and let your feet take you places. Because seeing somewhere in your feet, you get into all the nooks and crannies that you just can't when you're driving, and there's always beauty. So my question to you is, how open are you, and how regularly do you allow your childlike, wandering, discovering spirit to just be open and wild and free? Because if it's something that you don't really do on a regular basis, I wholeheartedly encourage you to engage it, because it's so much fun, you guys, and you might discover something that blows your mind. What's up, YouTube? What a difference a day makes. You know that song that's been going around and round in my head? So I was going to say it's 24 hours, but it's not. It's another day. So what's that, 48 hours? But yesterday, Wednesday, so we're on Thursday today, Wednesday was a bit of a duffy for me. It was 5 months since study passed, and I feel like that had a bit of an influence into how the day unfolded for me. But I was confronted with many things. Slight intrusion and interruption there. I was confronted with so many things yesterday. It was definitely a process. It's definitely ongoing.
Do you ever actually consciously sit and listen to the things that go on in the noggin? You know, really entertain that. I'm calling it destructive for want of a better word, because I don't necessarily think it is destructive, but the part of your mind that is dying for your attention, the part of your mind that does anything to get you to acknowledge it, to pay attention to it, to focus on it, to hear all its ruminations, to hear all of its expressiveness, even though, and particularly because that expression will be the lower end of your humanness, the lower end of who you are, the part of your conditioned self that is holding on to all the unpleasantness, the ugliness of your experience. So yeah, I was really confronted with that yesterday in very many ways, through my work, through judgment of myself about where I am in my life, what's going on, what isn't going on, how well I'm dealing with life, how well I'm showing up, how well I'm meeting my expectations, which, I mean, they're kind of arbitrary, because those are the expectations, the conditioned expectations that come up when life is harder, when I feel more disconnected, when I feel less in alignment. And I don't know if that's necessarily what happened, but there were I received some feedback, and the feedback got me to thinking, or got me to spiraling, maybe that's what happened. The feedback got me to spiraling so quickly to that disconnected, conditioned, unconscious thoughts, memories, feelings, actions, behaviours, words, on and on and on. But it was good, because I needed to connect with a lot of the emotion that was there. And it's always a reminder that life presents us opportunities to explore where we are and to accept our real experience versus the version of events that is disconnected from what's actually going on. The version of events that might be going, oh yeah, I'm fine, life is great, which on the one hand it may absolutely be, but then if we ignore the invitations to explore the uncomfortable things, or to explore the things that are less than comfortable or less than easy or unaligned, then we're missing some of the juicy stuff. Because the more we get into it, the more the truth of who we are, the aligned, the connected, the easy, the abundant, the flowing, the graceful aspect of who we are can show up and be more and do more. So how much space and honest time do you permit yourself when life gives you these invitations? So this is not the same as making time for self-care as a practice or as a series of practices on a regular basis. So say life happens and you are confronted with something that you either thought you dealt with, that you had moved forward from, or that you haven't thought about in a long, long time. What do? What do you personally do? Do you sit with it, make space for it, explore it, try and understand yourself better? Do you run away from it? Do you bury your head in the sand? Do you tantrum? Are you even aware that some of your behaviours are triggered or activated by these kinds of things? So that's the difference between having a conscious experience and being unconscious. You may be acting out, you may be behaving in the way that in your best, most lucid, right frame of mind, you would not be wanting to be doing. You may be shouting at the kids, shouting at your partner, shouting at anyone who's there. You might be shouting at yourself in your head. And when you're unconscious, this is happening and you are out of control. You're not able to observe it. You're not able to be fully present with it. You may, on reflection, look back and say, oh yeah, this happened because X, Y, and Z. But at the time, it's just carnage. And I used to do that a lot. I mean, there'd be times I'd be lucid with it and I'd be like, why am I so angry? Or why am I shouting? But I couldn't stop myself. And now I find that I'm observing it even if that's happening. So, when I'm confronted, I can see the saltiness or the sassiness that might be there, and still go with it, but it's a decision to go with it rather than a reaction. So does that make it better? Yes, because it's observing what's happening at the time that it's unfolding. So that's my question for you. Where are you at with the conscious decisions, with the conscious connection and presence of your unfolding? Where is it at for you, hun?